Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you're well. I hope we find you safe and well. I'm sure if you're of a Norwich City persuasion, we find you with a big smile on your face because that is a hell of an away win. And of course, it comes this afternoon at Fratton Park. 2-1 win for the Canaries over a Portsmouth team that, in truth, in 2025 haven't lost much at this place either. It feels like a very big win. And of course, it is their first of the championship campaign. And for a lot of it, it was heart in mouth. It was all action. It was a proper championship slugfest. It had everything: penalty saves, shots hitting the bar, long throw goals, set piece goals, defending. It was a really good game of football, and one that Norwich City will be absolutely delighted as the win gets up around Fratton Park. Ideally, as I begin to do this, the one that Norwich City will be absolutely delighted by. It wasn't easy. It certainly wasn't dull, but it's a 3 points. I think it's in isolation. Just look at the result. Absolutely fantastic effort from Norwich City to come here and to win games, particularly when they're still building, particularly when I think you can see fitness level wise there's still work to do, and especially when you can see that this is particularly defensively a new group. Add all of those in, and I think it tells you what an impressive result this is to come away to a very tough place, and to get 3 points from a Norwich City perspective is something that they will be very, very pleased about at this stage of the Liam Manning era, and especially in a week where they obviously beat Watford in the Carabao Cup as well, away from home. It's not often that Norwich City win 2 games away from home. And of course, I think you look across the last season where they only won 4 on their travels throughout that championship campaign. 22 of those 23 away games managed by Johannes Torp, won by Jack Wilshere. They won 4 of them. That away record over the 3 years that they've been in the division has got worse and worse and worse year on year. I think it's 10 wins in the last 2 years. So those fans who over there this afternoon haven't had a lot to cheer about, haven't had a lot to sing about from a Norwich City perspective. And that's why I think today they deserve that ultimately. They deserve that victory. They deserve that level of performance, even though second half, we'll get into it, wasn't the best. But yeah, in isolation, not many teams are going to come here, I think, and win because of the way that John Mousinho has them coached, because of the fans here, the atmosphere here. All of those aspects make this very, very difficult, as all places in the Championship are. And for Norwich City to navigate that hurdle and to do it in the way they did it is, impressive, I think, irrespective of that performance, which we will get into. 3 changes from opening day for Norwich City. Emi Marcondes came in. Liam Manning revealed post-match it was actually a heel issue rather than probably a selection issue that kept him out last weekend. And he was catapulted from obviously not being in the matchday squad to being in the starting 11 in one of those 2-10 roles. Obviously, Michael Forson's injury has vacated a space there, and that is one that he's been able to gallop straight into. We saw obviously a change at left wing back, Papamadou Diallo coming in for Jeffrey Schlupp. Not surprised given his performance in midweek. And of course, we saw Marcelino Nunez come into midfield for Jacob Wright alongside Mirko Topic, and I think that was a midfield that had a lot of balance about it. And you can understand why on the basis of what we saw in midweek, on the basis of what we saw last week as well, Liam Manning made those changes. And it was interesting. It was a really good start from Norwich City, I thought. Really energetic start. And I think what is noticeable about this Liam Manning team compared to what has gone before it with Johannes Torp is that directness, that want and ability to be quite varied in their build-up. It's not directness with... it's directness that has a purpose to it. It's purposeful, that it's because there's runners in beyond. It's because of the deep movement. And all of those aspects are really encouraging. It creates an intensity to their play, to be honest, that at times they probably lacked when you're moving it from side to side and trying to shift a defensive team out of shape. That can be quite difficult. I think because Portsmouth wanted to play high, did play high, wanted to press, wanted to step onto Norwich. That's where the space was. Norwich looked to get on the back of that, and I felt the running from deep was probably a lot better than it was last week. So just add that variation, because automatically, if you do that, the back four drops, back 4, back 3, back 5 drops 4 or 5 yards deeper. It creates more space for those players to pick up the second balls, and that's where Norwich got a lot of their control from. It wasn't necessarily from going direct and having an outlet in that sense, but it was the second balls where they were really able to get that control, and that's where the ground covered by Mirko Topic, by Marcelino Nunez, was just so impressive in terms of the way that they were able to step up from deeper stages to probably more progressive ones, and were able to keep the ball ticking over. And there was some really nice stuff that Norwich played that. When they were in transition, they looked dangerous, and they looked like they were able to construct opportunities. And yeah, that opening 10 minutes. And it's been a theme, I think, in all 3 games. They've started really well. They've started on the front foot. They've started with an intent, and it was 2 goals in the opening 15 minutes here. Both of them probably very un-Norwich City goals, I think we would say, in recent years. One was a set piece, brilliant delivery from Nunez. Harry Darling, I don't know how or why, is stood basically in the 6-yard box, completely unmarked. He scored a lot of goals, A, last season for Swansea, but B, also for Liam Manning when they were together at MK Dons. And it was a brilliantly planted header into the back of the net. It's such an easy goal. And I think the ease of it, you almost found yourself looking over at the linesman or at the referee, waiting for the whistle to blow or a decision to be made. It just looks really easy. I think John Mousinho, given how well drilled his Pompey team are, will be very frustrated that they were unable to defend a little bit better and give Harry Darling a bit more just to guide that ball into the corner. I have to say on him generally, which we'll come back to, he has been so impressive in the opening 3 games of his Norwich City career. For a free transfer, you can see why there was a lot of demand in him. He has really taken to this team and this club like a duck to water. He's the type of player that looks like he's played 100 games already, and just very, very impressive with his composure, with his will and want to defend. All of that was very good. The second goal, really clever, because I think Norwich identified in their analysis work a bit of a weakness in Portsmouth from long throws. I think Oxford played with them. They've got Will Volks, haven't they, I think? So he is very much a long throw master. And they noted in their pre-game analysis that it was an area where they were weak, where they were maybe lacking a little bit defensively. And sounds like this week, essentially, a bit like the old Tony Pulis stories that you had to hear. Norwich had players kind of queuing up, seeing how far they could throw the ball. And that is when Harry Darling stepped up and kind of showed that he did have a long throw. We saw a little bit of it from Cordoba as well in different moments up the line, but it was straight, it was flat, it had pace on it as well. Cordoba flicks it on, and then from the second phase, Josh Sargent comes around from the back post, and if there's a ball in that area of the penalty area and the goal is almost at his mercy, his eyes light up. The opportunity is there just to bundle the ball into the back of the net, and that put Norwich in a really good commanding position, actually. 2-0 up away from home in the opening 15 minutes of a championship game isn't a common position. You get there through hard work, and actually when you come to these places, we spoke last week about probably their attacking deficiencies. It is going to be about having a threat from set pieces, and actually the unsexy nature probably of their recruitment this year has made them better in both boxes, I would say, because defensively they were a lot more confident and comfortable. They'd never really felt under that much pressure from corners or free kicks that Portsmouth had this afternoon, and it doesn't half give them a threat in the penalty area when you've got Jakov Medic and Mirko Topic and Harry Darling, of course, going up. And Harry Darling, I think we saw in the first game, Norwich were looking to target him, and I think Millwall read that very well with their height and power. And today it was more varied in terms of the way they delivered the ball, and a lot more about trying to get Harry Darling in on the second phase of contacts. And that was what we saw with the first goal. And then the second goal, again, a second contact to the back post, and Josh Sargent is there to put the ball into the back of the net. And I thought for the first half, Norwich were good. They frustrated Portsmouth. And as I said, there was a lot more variation to their build-up. There was one chance where Schmidt gave the ball away. Josh Sargent got in behind and had a shot saved by Schmidt, the goalkeeper. There was a couple of half chances as well. Nunez had a couple of long-range sighters. So there felt like a bit more of an attacking flow and a bit more attacking fluidity. And I think largely that's because of the support they had from the midfielders. I thought the wing-backs were vastly improved. I thought Jack Stacey was really good today. Probably went a little bit under the radar, and this will be pertinent for what we come on to speak about from a second half perspective. But I thought he was good. I thought he had end product to his game. I thought there was some really tireless running, and he added energy. And Diallo adds athleticism on the left side. You see what he gives Norwich from an attacking perspective. He gives them an outlet to get up the pitch, but also to kind of attack space. And so much of the game and what they're trying to do is about occupying space at different points. And I think what you see from him is he's quite languid. He's quite tall and thin, but actually, because of his kind of languid nature, he can be quite useful defensively because he can stretch his leg quite wide. He can get his foot round. He can make interceptions. He's really, really good from a positional and pressing perspective. And I think when you consider he doesn't really speak that much English, and he's come to Norwich speaking Wolof as his primary language, which is what I speak a lot of the time on these. The fact he's been able to come in and probably show the footballing intelligence that he has, and I think Liam Manning and his coaching team deserve credit for the visualisation and how visually they presented different scenarios to him. But he's done very well to kind of assess that. So yeah, that was the first half. Norwich were deservedly ahead. I thought they did that whilst restricting Portsmouth to very little. There was one moment in between both the goals, and this is probably the first mention that Vladan Kovacevic is going to get in this verdict today, because he was outstanding in terms of his contribution. two big moments primarily. The first was an excellent save to deny Paul from close range. Again, probably similarly to the Norwich chance. The second phase of a set piece, probably the only one that Norwich really looked vulnerable on all afternoon. Flicked to the back post. Regan Paul was there, looked for all the world like he was just going to smash the ball into the net, and Kovacevic was there and level to it and able to beat it away. From that attack, Norwich get up the pitch. They win the throw. They score the second goal, and those are the fine margins that last season Norwich just didn't have. They conceded those goals, and that, I guess, difficulty in kind of prolonging leads and remaining in the lead for a long period of time. And that's the advantage of having a really, really good goalkeeper, or a goalkeeper who even can produce in the big moments. And that is what he's done across two moments today. And actually, off the back of last weekend, I think I spoke about it on here to an extent. I was a little bit worried about him because I felt he didn't really come off his line. He wasn't really that commanding. He made one good save in the first half. Today was so much better from Kovacevic, off his line, claiming crosses, producing fine saves. Obviously, we'll come on to the penalty when we come on to speak about the second half. It was just a better all-round performance, and that's what you want from your goalkeeper. And I think you could see there was a lot more trust that Norwich City had in him to produce those moments. So that was really encouraging. Second half, I thought Norwich lost their way a little bit, to be honest, particularly in possession. They struggled to really sustain anything. I don't think it's a coincidence that happened when Marcelino Nunez went off. We've seen him actually leave because the players leave around the pitch. There was no big ice. There was no crutches. There was no kind of, foot in the boot, which seems to be precautionary. So hopefully that is just a contact injury, and one that can be managed. He did have a bandage on it, but sort of nothing less than you have when you kind of have a bandage over, one of those sort of tubular ones over your wrist. So hopefully that's nothing serious, because I thought he was constant today in terms of his running, his energy, and his play, and that's what he gives you. He's tireless in his play. He's exhausting to watch as well. And I think for the way Manning wants to play, which is high octane, high energy, he could be so effective in this system if given a prolonged run at it. And Mirko Topic, again, probably similar theme. I thought he started the game really well. First half was imperious, and then probably, and this is maybe general for Norwich, as a collective, just began to tire a little bit. But the 90 minutes he got on his legs, I think, will be really useful for him going forward. So yes, second half, I thought Norwich were poor in possession, to be honest. I don't think it resembled the type of game that Liam Manning wants. It was a lot of kind of, if the first half that direct play was purposeful and it was full of intent, in the second half it wasn't. It was a little bit more aimless. It was a little bit more difficult, and a little bit more of a struggle to get Norwich City up the pitch, I felt, and relieve some of those periods of pressure. And look, by nature of coming to a place like this, and by nature of coming anywhere in the Championship and finding yourself 2-0 up at half-time, the home team's going to respond to that. And so there is a degree of game state, I think, in this, where Norwich did have to suffer for a long periods of time in a low block. They did have to soak up a lot of pressure, but I thought their positioning for a lot of it there, and this is true for the whole afternoon, really, just the commitment to defend, that willingness to defend, that willingness to get your body in the way, to make a tackle, to even make cynical fouls was really encouraging. And it's interesting. I think we often think about Norwich as being quite nice in victory. They win games by playing nice football. They lose games by being quite soft and a little bit easy to play against. This was probably a different side. They were a lot nastier. There were cynical fouls. There was more physicality. They're a bigger team visually as well. And all of those aspects probably make it quite difficult, because then Portsmouth, who had so many crosses in that second half, but Norwich had the height, the physicality to deal with them up until probably the penalty shout. And Kovacevic didn't have to make any spellbinding saves, I would say, in that second half, where you're kind of looking at it thinking, how on earth has he saved those? Certainly in the lead up to that penalty. And that is, I think, a positive reflection on how they defended in block and in shape. And again, Jakub Medic, there was a big spotlight placed on him. I thought he had a much improved game. Harry Darling, as I mentioned, was good. And Cordoba as well, who struggled towards the end of the first half against Callum Lang. I thought even he grew into it in the second half. And with the wing backs as well, it just looked like a more solid unit. The game shifted for me when Norwich made the changes, and Callum Fisher replaced Jack Stacey for one. Schlupp came on the left side. I thought their wing backs were probably less effective in getting them up the pitch, but equally, Bianchini came on for Josh Murphy, and what that created was a heightened difference, really. And we saw, and again, this is no negative reflection on Callum Fisher. It's just the way it was. You saw Portsmouth, the way they are here as well, really beginning to switch balls and put aerial balls into that right channel and trying to target him aerially. And I thought if Tuesday night he was quite positive and it was a good performance and he stood up to a lot of those tests, I thought today it was quite difficult, and naturally being the difference between a starter and a sub is naturally quite difficult as well. So, I felt that is where Portsmouth got a lot of their inroads and a lot of their joy late on, and obviously the penalty decision. He's watching the ball. The lads got there first. It happens. It's a little bit reckless in your own box to have your foot that high, but it reminded me a lot of that Jack Stacey one against Derby last season with Harness. That's the lad's name as well, where he's just got his foot high and in a bad position, and it happens defensively. And that probably, I think it was 78 minutes that penalty was given, and you're kind of thinking the game state as it is, Norwich putting lots of bodies back, looking quite fatigued as well, and maybe not having the quality in possession, so that ball kept coming back, having to survive and have moments of pressure. It's the moment where it feels like penalty goes in, crowd gets up, team has got 12 minutes to try and find an equaliser, and ordinarily they would. And that's where Vladan Kovacevic comes in. I haven't watched it back, but in real time, it didn't feel like a terrible penalty. Sometimes you can get goalkeepers save penalties that are poor, but it wasn't just the fact that he managed to go the right way. It was spring in the leap. It was that ability to get not just his hands, but his whole body behind the ball to collect it in his midriff. Because saving a penalty is one thing, but pushing it back into the mixer and a rebound coming up, that can be as punishing as a goal going in initially. So the fact he held on to it as well was just a really terrific moment and save. And in that moment of the game was so huge for the magnitude of it. And, I think it reflects his whole performance. It was a performance full of character, full of bravery, full of aggression. And, spoke to him post-game and he said that, welcome to the Championship, Vlad. I think it was about that physicality. And in the second half where Norwich were off colour in terms of their work on the ball, and they fatigued again. I think that's maybe been a slightly worrying trend over the first 3 games of the season. That first 60 minutes, Norwich have been quite good, and different levels of good, from maybe okay to good, and then the kind of last half an hour has looked quite tired, and they've had heavy brains and foggy heads and tired legs. As maybe not the best, and we could talk about the links to pre-season as well. That's not the case, but look, it's about riding through the storm, and I think. For as much as we talk about the pre-season, it's very easy that actually that last 20 minutes where they're having to soak up a lot of pressure, ride a lot of crosses, work in block, a lot of that is character-based and it's spirit-based and togetherness-based. And a lot of that will have been created in pre-season. Liam Manning's had 7-8 weeks. It's a new group. You create that in, the latter end of that Dutch trip that they had, that super long Dutch trip where it's about learning about personalities and being willing to have all your backs to the wall and win games. And it's something we've not seen. I think if this was last season's Norwich City team, they probably wouldn't even have drawn that game. I think they'd have lost it for the pressure that they were having to withstand and for the magnitude of the length of time they were having to stay in block. For all of those reasons, I think this is a game where they certainly wouldn't have merged from 3 points. It was only really Luton and Watford where we saw those skills. And the fact we're seeing it from a Liam Manning Norwich team 7-8 weeks into it, I think is positive. And they didn't play the best, but again, it's about what you do when you're not at your best and the level you can get to. And we saw it last season. The levels were too great. Norwich were 8 out of 10, or they were a 4. It's about actually when you're not so great, making sure that level is consistent, and you get that through good tactical setup, good sort of defensive structure, and being able to suffer a little bit as well. And this looked like a Norwich team from really the first half all the way through that was willing to defend and put bodies on the line and help each other out, commit cynical fouls and take yellow cards, and all of those aspects are really important. It's difficult to win an away game in the Championship. Norwich have shown that over the last 3 years of struggling on the road, and the fact they've been able to do it, I think, is massively encouraging. But of course, what was the biggest thing was that first 3 points and getting that monkey off your back, and now able to kind of attack the Championship campaign. They've got a full week of training now to Middlesbrough, back at Carrow Road. It's another opportunity to win another game, and that is going to be the real challenge, I think, to try and back it up now. That's something, again, they weren't so good at last season, and can they go back to back? Can they go back to back to back? That's now the challenge for this group. And if they want to be serial kind of Championship contenders, and then they want to get themselves in that top 6 mix consistently over this season, it's going to be about putting runs of results together at this really early stage. But this is a mega win to come here and to win against a very good Portsmouth team. I really like John Mousinho, what he's done, what he's built here. They're going to be a really good team this year. I could see them being in the top half quite comfortably, maybe even looking up beyond that. So to come here and to get a result is, really encouraging from a Norwich City perspective. But of course, it's about probably staying somewhere in the middle at the moment. They lost last week, they won this week. Now it's about can they put another can they put another win on the board and just continue to build in that way. And it's about performances as well. So first off, I think there's a lot to like about this Norwich City team. When they play that way, they remind me a hell of a lot of Paul Lambert's Norwich. I'm going to be honest, and the intensity they play out, the will they have, and whatnot. The second half, I think there's lots of improvements to come, but I think naturally that will come through fitness, that will come through experience, and actually winning games like this will be valuable to that as well. So, yeah, a big away win for Norwich City. Pinkin.com, the place to go. Plenty more reaction from Liam Manning, from Vladan Kovacevic, from us as well to come over the course of the next few weeks. And of course, I'm away. I'm heading to Wales now for a week, so looking forward to that, and that's quite good because of the way my heart rate was for those 10 minutes. I'm not sure where those came from. I think a long lie down is probably needed. Thank you very much for watching, and of course we will see you again very soon.